Okay, so the first question we have is not directed to any particular person, so anybody feel free to jump in. We heard a lot about an evolutionary appropriate diet. Historically, humans ate fatty meats and marrow. And fasted due to limited food availability. Please discuss that.
I also think we're like disregarding venison's very lean, rabbits are very lean. There's not just fatty meat, there's like lean meat too. And there wasn't a butter churner to make butter to put it on the meat.
I'll just add that what's appropriate, I think, is also based on where you were, living a gazillion years ago. So I think there are some environments where certain types of dietary patterns are more appropriate because of the evolutionary pattern for that group of people. So I think you have to be careful not to get too granular and say this is the only way to eat. I just don't believe that. I think that people need to be open to different dietary patterns.
Yep. Oh no, that's good.
I always like to say too that back then they weren't killing an animal, only eating the fatty meat and leaving the lean meat, and then going and finding another animal and taking the fat off that animal to add it to the other animal so they could get more fat.
The next question is, to prevent insomnia, should I take electrolytes in the evening?
I do. I don't drink electrolytes, but I do capsules because they're just easier for me. And I do 3 before I work out in the morning right away. And then 3, but my number is different than everybody else's. Like you have to find what works for you. But you need hydration at bedtime. Has anybody heard of like carb ups before bed? Mm-hmm. Helps with sleep. And it's not that carbs help with sleep, but that water retention, that's what you need. I just don't want to drink a whole bunch right before I go to bed either.
I'll just add that I definitely prepare my patients. So going back to this whole idea of what you said, carb ups. Carb withdrawal is a real thing as opposed to keto flu. And I think if you tell people in advance, you're likely to experience A, B, and C, and one of them is your magnesium level may go down. And yes, my patients do really well when they take magnesium at the end of the day. You don't have to take a pill. Some people use magnesium oil, some people use magnesium cream, and you have to be careful because, as many of you know, if you take too much, you may find yourself doing number 2. Nicest way I can say it. But yeah, I think it's important to listen to your body. I was sharing with Maria, I really wasn't doing a lot of electrolytes in my early low-carb days. I actually started more recently when I got to carnivore. But I found that I needed the magnesium at the end of the day. I needed the salt. I needed to increase my salt. And once I did that, everything got better. And I got a little nervous because I heard that with these dietary patterns, you can feel like, you can't sleep very well. But once you get those electrolytes right, it's like you have to fine tune it like a radio. You'll find that you'll get there. But yes, electrolytes are critical for patterns.
And to follow up on Dr. Tony, everybody is very bio-individual. So some people might actually need more potassium than magnesium. So you really got to fine-tune that. For insomnia, it's not only about electrolytes also, though. So circadian health, watching the sunset, watching the sunrise, getting that circadian clock in your system to kind of reset. So that would be another thing besides electrolytes that could potentially help that.
This question is for Dr. D'Agostino. Any studies showing ketone impacts on autistic brains and neural function using MRI studies?
No, unfortunately, I'm not aware of any such clinical trials or anything like that. We have a lot of anecdotal reports about autistic people, but not really studies. Unfortunately, no funding yet for such studies.
This one says, Maria, your slideshow mentioned using stored body fat versus eating excess fat. What percentage of protein do you recommend eating instead of the 65 to 75% fat range that is usually promoted in ketogenic macros?
If you use percentages, if you're doing it for weight loss, you'll fail. So instead of using percentages, use macros, and I do have, like I said, a free macro calculator because what you need is going to be different than what I need. You go off your lean mass, and if you don't know what your lean mass is, we would help you, but you want to maintain that, and that's how much protein you want. And then with fat, it's depending on your personal goals, your activity, male, female, like what's your lifestyle like. So it's very, very, very individualized, but don't do percentages, you'll fail.
This question is for Dr. Hampton. Can you talk a little bit about the connection between fructose and non-alcoholic fatty liver disease?
It's just know that many of you may be aware that fructose is primarily metabolized in the liver, and glucose is pretty much utilized by all the cells. So if you're only metabolizing fructose in the liver, Houston, we have a problem. And one of the problems is that when that fructose is metabolized, your body can't really use it, so it just kind of gets stored as fat. So thus the fatty liver. And the fatty liver effect is kind of where the fat gets started, and then it can spread to the rest of your body. So when you overconsume fructose in any form, you have the risk of a fatty liver, which increases the risk for, as I said in my presentation, diabetes. And if you have a fatty liver, it gets inflamed, and if it's inflamed, your risk for cirrhosis is higher. If your risk for cirrhosis is higher, your risk for liver cancer is higher. And your risk for, and once it gets hard, now you have a risk of esophageal varices, where the vessels have to go through your liver, and if they get blocked and it can't go through it well because it's hard, now you can literally have a ruptured esophagus from a liver that's cirrhotic. So, and I've actually, this is the good news. So I've had a patient who had literally came to me with was being told you're going to die in 2 years, because it's going to rupture things, and anybody that just takes care of people with cirrhosis knows it's pretty dire. And this person went on a keto diet, and that was like 8 years ago, and they're still doing really well. It seems, they still have a little bit of a cirrhosis, but the fatty liver is gone. The flow through that liver is better, and they actually are doing well. So even in a very difficult, serious medical condition like that, it's never too late. Never too late.
Dr. Vega, how do you know if you're metabolically healthy?
Thank you. Well, if you are able to sleep properly, you wake up rested. I don't focus so much on the weight. And you might think, because of the title of my book, The Science of Losing Weight, I focus on the weight. But the truth is that you need to tell people what they want to hear, and you need to give them what they want and what they need. And what people need and want is health. So I couldn't title the book The Science of Being Healthy because nobody would buy it, to be honest. Yeah. So at the end, being able to perform, being mentally focused, not being hungry every hour of the day, that's a big one. And when patients come to our clinic, what they say after their first 15 days, we tell them you're going to go to live from the Earth to Mars. And what happens in Mars, you're not hungry anymore, you're not with sweet cravings, you can sleep well, and you're able to have energy. The other day I was interviewing one of our clients in the podcast that I have, and she said, I have so much energy that I already fixed my house 3 times in the last month. So metabolic health is being able to extract energy for the daily functions, and of course we have some blood markers that we can use, but in terms of behavior, just the regular things is waking up without an alarm clock and fully rested, being able to sustain a conversation, being able to remember things. That to me is the basis of metabolic health.
I will say the most annoying thing to my mother was the increased energy and not needing as much sleep. She said it was upsetting her dog that, like, as soon as she went keto, she's like, I'm up at 5 o'clock and, like, ready to go. When is that going to stop? Okay, so this is for all the speakers. Today we heard some different messages today about fat, protein, ketones, fasting, insulin. Some even seem to contradict each other. Can we clarify the commonalities that are shared among all the speakers for those of us scratching our heads, because everyone had science to support their points?
Don't eat the cotton candy upstairs. Like, I mean, we're getting people off processed foods, and so fat, protein, whatever, if you can stick to it, that's what's most important. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. Keep it simple. Processed foods. I mean, it's amazing that your kids didn't know what cotton candy was. That's a beautiful thing.
They saw an M&M on the floor, and they're like, this was when they were little. They're like, oh, Mom, look at this weird Lego. I was like,
yeah. So seed oils is a perfect example of what we should eat. And again, I use the mnemonic Boca: butter, olive oil, coconut oil, avocado oil with my patients because it's cold pressed, it's not processed. And if you have to take a oil, or our patients think vegetable oils are from vegetables, right? They're really from the seeds, and then you have to put it through this press and squeeze it, and it's through these various objects, and it's horrible. And then they have to put chemicals on it, and then they have to clean it after they've done all that so it won't smell horrible. And then they put that in front of you and say, this is health food. So at the end of the day, that's one example of a highly processed food that we shouldn't eat. So if you keep it simple, eat things that were made by nature, and take that approach, you'll do much better. So I just think that's how I look at it. We need essential foods, essential amino acids, essential fatty acids. And as long as you understand that basic concept, and you think about a bear who eats salmon, they don't need to eat fruits and vegetables. You're kind of like that bear, you're like that lion. So if you understand biochemistry, you understand most of the stuff that's being sold to us is totally unnecessary. And if you eat that first and periodically indulge, like my friends, gotta keep doing that. And by the way, we indulge too. You will be successful. And you don't have to be perfectly doing it just like your neighbor. Just eat real food.
I think there's no one single good advice that will fit for everybody, because everybody is different. Everybody is here for a different reason, with a different problem, different age, different gender, as I mentioned. Everybody has different needs. So I don't think we have to summarize in one sentence what everybody should do. But you have to consider what's best for you, because, like, for example, my husband can eat 6 eggs and a ton of fat in the morning for breakfast. I cannot. I get nauseous. So I have to find another way to whatever, if I want to lose weight, if I want to increase my ketones because my brain is damaged, but whatever. So everybody will be different. So I think the only kind of common ground is that we don't really want to have elevated insulin, and again, on the last day people will talk about this more.
To summarize, that's a hard one. Well, from our perspective, I would say, to summarize, eat during the light hours of the day. Never eat when it's dark. That way you make your circadian rhythms with your hormones to match with the time that you are eating. That's a really important point. The second one is stay grounded to the earth, barefoot. That's really important. The third one is have some sunshine every day, at least 15 to 20 minutes between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. That's right. That's the hour of the day where we produce the most vitamin D. Work with your mindset. You have to watch your self-sabotage. If you want to know a little more about that, maybe you can go and see my lecture from the last year here in Low Carb USA. That was specifically about self-sabotage. Take time to breathe. when you breathe slowly, it has been shown that when you start slowing your breathing pace, you move from beta waves in the brain, which are when we are stressed, to alpha waves just by breathing. And that takes you into a more calm state just by breathing. Drink a lot of water, have exercise. Do a cold plunge every once in a while. That's really wild. What we see in our patients is that they accelerate the rate of losing fat in the case that they want to lose fat almost 10 times when they start doing that. And I also explain that in the book. And of course, stress management. And I'll give you a simple thing you can do, because we have the mirror neurons. Are you familiar with that?
Yes.
The mirror neurons is when we see a hug, somebody hugging, we feel the hug. So it has been shown that to diminish the amount of cortisol that we have circulating at any point in time, you can do it immediately just by watching an act of kindness. Because your body relates to this thing I was talking earlier about tribe association. So if you want to do it immediately, just go, it's instant gratification. Go into YouTube and type acts of kindness, and you will find a lot of videos where people gather together a lot of these scenarios. And when you watch them, you will find yourself crying. And many times very emotional, because when you see an act of kindness, you receive an act of kindness, you give an act of kindness, and you witness an act of kindness, oxytocin starts to go up immediately and cortisol starts to go down. So that's an easy way. Actually, before my son goes to bed at night, I put him a blue light blocker sunglasses or glasses, and I stay with him. I tell him a night story, and we see 5 minutes of these videos, so he goes to bed in a calm state. And of course, enjoy what you eat, basically, to summarize.
So if anyone is confused at the end of this conference, after everything you've heard, I want to encourage you to go back and watch Coach Bronson's presentation again and consider your own context as it applies to what the speaker had to say. Because at the end of the day, we're always going to hear the greatest new thing. The greatest new thing for whom, why, in what context. So what I would encourage you to do is do a little reflection, do a little journaling for yourself. What am I doing now in each of these main areas? Nutrition, movement, mental and emotional health, lifestyle and habits. Just do a brain dump. What am I doing now? If I'm wondering what to do next, what is the thing in each area? You can identify one thing in each area that would move the needle 1%. Get yourself back on the right trajectory if you might be veering off course. A lot of the time, we know what that is. We already know. We're just not doing it.
She pretty much said what I was going to say. But the other thing is, a lot of us, I think, come here because we're tired of our doctors just giving us the simple solution of a pill, right? So in the same context, nutrition and lifestyle is not going to be, here's the magic formula. So whatever you've learned today, yesterday, whenever the next day is, I can't keep track. Like Natalie said, you need to take it into your own personality, your own bio-individuality, your ethnicity, your genetic, all of it. Like, trauma plays a role. So we can't say high fats for you, high proteins for you. You have to take what you have learned and discern for yourself what is best for me. The other aspect is hire a coach. We can help you.
The next question is, I'm following a meat-based way of eating for 3 years. One of my issues is always feeling cold, especially my hands and feet. What can I do?
Put them on your significant other to warm them up. warm for some reason.
It could be Raynaud's. I don't know if that's something that was ever diagnosed, but that's a magnesium deficiency in most cases. So you want to make sure that you do a good quality magnesium, not like oxide or citrate. You want something absorbable that can attach to an amino acid like glycinate or threonate or something like that. That's more like
This is, this is when you have to start problem solving.
Can't hear you.
Oh, I'm sorry. This is when you have to really start problem solving because it's not necessarily logical that would happen, but is the metabolic rate slowing down? I think that I would really consider doing some more tests, more hormonal tests. In particularly anything that's dealing with the hypothalamus and the pituitary. So we're thinking about cortisol levels. We're thinking about anything that deals with the adrenal. So I would encourage your clinician to not, because if you think about it, thyroid is what kind of comes to mind right away. But the hypothalamus deals with a lot of other hormones, right? So. And that's what I love about functional medicine doctors. They tend to look at the root cause and they'll start breaking it down. But I would start with your primary care doctor, at least start to evaluate, is there something going on? Because guess what? People on low carb, keto, and carnivore get, normal diseases that everybody else gets, right? So you don't want to make assumptions that it's just the diet. Maybe there's something else going on. So once you eliminate those things, then you can start, playing around with the diet a little bit.
Actually, I just want to follow up on that point that not everything is always related to keto, carnivore, or your diet. I hear it a lot. Oh, this has happened since I did this. Well, you weren't really paying attention before, right? I think about all the other things that happened before you changed your diet. You never thought it was diet related.
This question is for Dr. Vega. Does stress itself cause failure, or does it trigger bad behavior like eating non-keto foods or binge eating?
Well, that's a great question. Yeah, our stress response is designed to release energy and resources because we have to defend ourselves to be able to survive for whatever threat we have in front of us. So instantly, when we are under stress, sustained stress, the liver will start to release glucose, okay? In a secondary phase, the system is going to start to destroy muscle mass to send those amino acids into the liver to turn them into glucose, which is going to elevate your glucose level. For example, somebody was saying, and that same thing happened to me, sometimes I use this CGM, and I experienced a huge elevation on my glucose. It was from 80 to 145, and it was after a discussion I had with my wife. A friendly discussion, of course. But what happens if you have that situation sustained every hour of the day? So, for example, you lost a significant one, and you haven't been able to overcome that, or you lost your job, or you're on a financial crisis, and you keep that thought all the day in your mind. So the system is always on. So you are constantly releasing glucose from the liver, and what happens is every time you have this glucose elevation, we already know we release insulin, and then the glucose goes down. And what happens when glucose goes down? You get cravings. That's why in some cases when people are depressed, they turn into, because that's a stress, they turn into the ice cream because that's going to elevate the glucose and take them out of that dip in emotions that they have. But that doesn't last too long. It goes up and then comes down, and then they need it again. So yeah, there's definitely a component to get into the vicious cycle in terms of excess stress in your life.
The next question is for Dr. D'Agostino. Is there any studies on the use of ketones on a keto diet in the prevention of the diseases discussed?
Well,
other than the ones I showed, I try to update it as much as possible. I don't know if Dom knows anything more, but I only know about the ones that I showed you. Sorry.
I think I would just simplify that answer and just say, if most diseases are metabolic. I mean, I was joking earlier about, name the disease, and everybody would say too much insulin, right? So I think from my perspective, if we understand that basic concept, then we understand that a person who has a keto diet will probably never get type 2 diabetes. That's my opinion. That's what I've seen in clinical practice. And most Americans eat in a way where that's not true. They eat the foods that cause that. So I think from that angle, I think that you do yourself a great favor. In other words, you don't have to be a person who's sick. Many of us in this room has a problem to solve. But think about our babies when you think about Maria Emmerich, right? They'll never see any of these so-called chronic medical conditions because they're on a keto diet or carnivore. That's knock on wood, right? Because I think that's what's going to happen. So, or the probability goes down so significantly that you've done them a blessing. So that's kind of. So I do think keto is a prevention diet and a diet that is therapeutic both.
As Canadians, we struggle to find any doctor who has this knowledge and who can recommend and review lab tests with us. Are there doctors who can take virtual patients?
Yes. You have people like I was talking to Dr. Tro Kalasian earlier, and he has a virtual practice. And we have, I think, let's get some names out here, guys. Our heart doctor, who's the heart doctor? Dr. Vega, I think he has a virtual practice. Gary Sliver.
Cyrus.
Dr. Robert Cyrus, right. Dr. Linskis has a virtual practice. So there are people out there. I think for a larger context, Low Carb USA, Society of Metabolic Health Practitioners, there are sites where you can search for people in your area, but unfortunately, we know I live in Chicago, and there's probably less than 15 doctors on the map if you search in a state where we have 11 million people. So that's a problem. So we do need virtual clinicians. I think Dr. Sean Baker. Yeah, I was just thinking that. It just came to my brain. We're on the same page. So Dr. Sean Baker has a Overa Health. So and I think they're going to grow that even more. So those are places you can start, and there's probably some. Yeah. Dr. Finney. Berta, exactly. And Berta is a great option because at a very reasonable cost, you can have these great doctors app that'll guide you through your journey. So, and they're great because they've done the research, right? Before they put this product in front of people, they said, let's do all the studies, and they probably have, 15 or so studies that show low carb is a disease, a diet that can help reverse diabetes type 2 in particular. So the help is there. We just need more people out there doing this work. So.
That makes me so happy, Dr. Hansen, because I feel like if someone asked that question 5 years ago, we'd be hard pressed to find one. So thankful for that. This question is for Maria. For the person in your presentation who is stuck at a high weight for many weeks, what was your solution to move the needle?
I would ask a bunch of questions. Like first, what's their diet? How's their sleep? Like, are they on any medications? A bunch of things that way. And I guess I don't think people realize sleep, how much that is going to affect your weight loss journey. Dairy, I would cut that out. Most people hate, and then when I say dairy, it means butter too. Like most people are like, what?
Yeah.
Yes, it means butter. So cutting out all the dairy is a big one. It also can trigger autoimmune issues and things like that. There's a lot of things, but that's what I would start with. Sleep, movement, and dairy. That can help.
I'd just like to preface this by the full disclosure. This is not my question. The question is, can Dr. Vega teach us his own personal motivational dance?
Well, to tell you the truth, it's called a power pose. So I lied a little bit when I said that I was doing the haka dance. And that's what I do it before every presentation or before any meeting where I need a good outcome. This is what I do.
Everybody get their cameras out?
Yeah. This, and it has been shown that when you adapt this pose, the Superman or Superwoman pose, you produce a lot of testosterone, which, 30% more, and you diminish the amount of cortisol and your chances of making a good decision go up by 30%. So it works. Is that how long do you have to do the pose? 2.5 minutes. 2.5 minutes. Yeah, it has been shown that when people are in an interview for a job, if they do this, they influence the interviewer to get selected. That's what testosterone does. Not during the interview.
Okay, when doing a keto low carb protocol, despite taking electrolytes and magnesium, I always seem to have a low-grade headache. What might be the cause and what could help? I am currently taking 2 elements per day. Any suggestions?
My son Kai, if he does electrolytes but then enough liquid, he's gonna have massive headaches. So you just want to everybody's different, but most of the time if you don't do it, either way, not enough liquid, too much liquid, there's definitely a balance. And I also wanted to touch on the electrolytes early, which I remember now. When you have low electrolytes or these feelings of low electrolytes, it could be too much iron too. We don't talk about that in this keto carnivore space at all. Like, oh, add more electrolytes, add more electrolytes, add more electrolytes, but you don't feel any better. It could be too much iron, and then you just donate blood, get it tested.
I want to say, for myself, I had the same thing, and it ended up being something as simple as natural flavors. So it's not always about the natural flavors ingredients. So for myself, if I have any of these amazing tasting electrolytes and stuff like that, if it has a natural flavor in it, I will get complete sinus congestion, headaches for 3 days. Nothing fixes it. No medication, no vitamin C, nothing. I just have to suffer through it. So look at what you're eating, look at the ingredients, and you have to trial and error eliminating them and seeing perhaps you are having some sort of reaction to those products.
Really good point. That happens with me with certain additives as well. So all of your products, look at all the labels all the time. And as Maria mentioned, the balance of electrolytes is very important. It's not just getting enough electrolytes. Electrolytes is sodium, magnesium, potassium. You also have other minerals that need to be in balance. So you may need to try moving one needle at a time to see if you need more sodium to the amount of potassium, more potassium to the amount of sodium, more liquid, less liquid, more magnesium, right?
And caffeine. Nobody likes me talking about coffee. It's another thing I would ask a lady who wants to lose weight that's stuck about coffee and caffeine, but that caffeine is going to shrink those blood vessels, and then over time it's going to cause this low-grade headache. When you quit the caffeine, sure, you're going to have this bad 2 days or whatever of headaches, but then they're going to go away forever. Yep. This is a girl who worked at a coffee shop since I was 15. I had an IV of coffee, but when you cut it out, you sleep better, you have better energy. No.
I would like to add one more thing, because we have that experience with our patients. And we advise that they need to have at least 5 grams of sodium, which is not 5 grams of salt. You need to have 12.5 grams, which is 2.5 teaspoons of salt to get 5 grams of sodium. So many of them are under consuming salt, if that's their primary source of sodium. And as Maria said, sometimes too much salt and few water, and sometimes too much water and too few salt can be the problem as well. So I add 12.5 at least, And if you exercise outdoors, you need to go higher. That would be probably 3 teaspoons, sometimes 4. We even had a triathlete that needed 6 teaspoons of salt every day just to feel enough energy, and also with a lot of water.
Just to tack on, since Jen had shared about like if you have a natural flavors aversion or you just don't want those in your life, we were talking about Salty and Element as sponsors, but Keto Chow also provides like just the electrolyte drops if you want just nothing in them. Obviously,
liquid and
unflavored.
yeah, and
Unflavored.
and capsules.
If you like the daily minerals, if you want them, if you need daily minerals, Dr. Berry formulated them,
I like
but now they're in
capsules.
capsules.
Talk
I
about
just
jet
wanted
fuel.
to tack on to Dr. Vega's sodium. See that? That's how much minimum. That's what I tell all of my coaching clients. That's the minimum amount of sodium you should have every day.
It's funny.
That's 6 grams.
And okay, so kind of fun fact about Redmond, who's one of our sponsors. That's still hand filled by a person. So by hand, each one, and each one is weighed. And if for some reason it's not dead on, which this person is pretty good at it, I watched him do it. I'm like, how are they doing it perfectly, and also getting it down on this thing? Then they put it over because it should always. I just love Redmond. I mean, do the Redmond challenge. It's a different.
The owner was in the salt line.
Yes.
Yeah.
And anything that's for human grade, because Redmond, if you don't know, like your road salt, that's Redmond. If your livestock salt, like a salt lick for cows, Redmond. If it's on the human grade consumption, they actually change out all of they have special devices.
Special place on the mine.
Even
special
the
equipment.
oil for the gears on the thing is edible. I mean, not that you'd want to, but they take it to that length to make sure that you're getting quality salt. So do the Redmond challenge if you have never done that. There's going to be table salt at dinner, and then you have this little bottle of Redmond. Taste the difference. It's really a lot
And
different.
it comes from the United States, not some place where you
Yeah,
don't know
you don't
the labor
know.
laws and kids, and I'll fly across the world.
Right. Also, don't maybe get your salt from Ross Dress for Less, right? I know you said that. Just for fun. Okay, so this one is for Jen Winkler. How does keto help with children on the autism spectrum? Anything specific other than just overall wellness?
Well, I will say that's not my specific niche. My son has it. I'm not somebody to speak to the science of it. I was talking with, I forget who it was earlier today, that if you know a plumber can fix the leak in your house, do you need to know how he's fixing it? No, you're just going to say, please fix the leak, right? So to the science of it, I can't speak to it. I think some of these doctors, well-versed, could speak higher than I can. With my son, where we prioritize real whole food. We get rid of the red food dye. He's a kid, so the same with Maria's son. We were upstairs at the buffet line, and he pointed to the spaghetti. He's like, what's that? Like, we don't have spaghetti. We don't have pasta. We prioritize real food because we want him to thrive, and we see that it makes a big difference in his emotional stability. That's the one. And he did have some sweets the past 2 days. You may have seen it in the low carb group. And it was shortly after that his fingers got stuck in the elevator because he was so moving around he could not stay still. And he put his hands there, and he tells me, I can't control it. And so we have a good talk about that, and we educate him. Notice what you ate today that was different. Do you think that could make an impact, right? So we also, he's young, but he's smart, and he can soak it in. I think educating your children on the effect of food is a very, very big part so that they can own that when they get older, go to college and stuff. They're not going to just give in. They know how it affects them. So as far as the science, I can't tell you, but I can tell you I've seen a huge difference in our son.
For Dr. Hampton, for all the people who quickly took their phones out to snap the slide with fruit that have lower glycemic levels, can you perhaps clarify some limits and suggestions for not going overboard even with things like berries and avocados?
Yeah, I think you have to set some kind of personal goal. Sometimes that goal is based on what you're trying to achieve. So if you have autism, you probably want to remain in ketosis, right? So, and if we know that ketosis is neuroprotective, and I mean literally the nerves that, the myelin that surrounds your nerves is made of cholesterol and fat, and we know that fat is your friend when you're thinking about your nervous system. So if your goal is to stay in ketosis, you may want to go no higher than 20 or 30 total carbs per day, not net, but total, just to stay in a place that's safe. And then you start to think, well, what does that mean? Well, that means that there's not a lot of fruit that's going to do that, right? We know that the berries fit into that category, and the avocados and olives may be fitting in that category, but the goal is stay in the range that's good for you. Now, the problem with fruit is that it's going to cause a little bit of a spike, but if you have somebody in front of you that actually is consuming fruit and it's not causing a problem with ketosis, then it's probably okay. So the key is, what's your goal? Now, I have patients who were doing 350 carbs a day, and although I want them to be at less than 50 or less than 30, they're at 100 and they're thriving because they were at 350. So I think you set a personal goal, and as long as you're achieving your goal, it's okay.
Burn it. Work out beforehand.
Yeah.
That too.
Okay, so just as a last question, this is for all of our presenters today. What is the most utilized cooking device in your home?
Cast iron skillet. Cast iron skillet with talent.
It's definitely the air fryer for us because it's quick and easy. My wife always fusses because I only cook the meat part, and she comes home, where's my vegetable? I'm like, aren't you a carnivore like me? And she says, no. I got to work on that
part. We use a lot of different devices, so it's hard to say which one. I think my teapot.
So bean. So my teapot.
My espresso machine. Frying pan, air fryer, and we don't use microwave oven since 2001.
I'll second the coffee. But for us, let's see, for Bronson, it's the crock pot and the frying pan for his eggs over medium every day. And for me, it's the crock pot for my lamb leg and the air fryer for pretty much everything else.
Yeah, I'd say by far the air fryer. The air fryer, and then for everybody else in my house is the coffee pot.
I will tell you, for Rachel, it's a dehydrator.
No, my answer is Joe.